You're going to showboat, knock down the shot.
For what his value is, it doesn't equate to winning basketball.
When you're talking about the greatest of greats, that's what you have to do. You have to nitpick.
We'll see you in the playoffs. We'll see you in the playoffs.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Tee 'em Up podcast. I'm Jace Eustace, joined as always by my co-host, my partner here, Jared Huff. Jared, how you doing back at home, I see?
I'm doing pretty well. Back at home, no more road weddings or anything like that. So we're gonna take this nice long 3-day weekend. We're gonna enjoy it, off work for the week. So I'm feeling good.
There you go, man. Good. Feeling good. I'm feeling good. And let's talk some hoops. So the first thing that we kind of got on the topic here is the Lakers, man. And we talked a lot about the Lakers. We talked a lot about LeBron.
I don't want to talk about them, but
it's kind of hard to have anything NBA related and just be like, I'm not going to talk LeBron. I'm not going to talk the Lakers because it's a lot of content. We kind of have to do it. So, and it makes sense that we normally have different opinions when it comes to these things. So, Jared, a few days ago, the Lakers fell out of that play-in tournament. They didn't play last night, but because of a loss to the Spurs, they actually find themselves back right at the bottom in that 10 seed right now. So, if the season ends and the Lakers are not even in that play-in tournament, does this hurt LeBron at all going forward? What do you think?
I think it has to a little bit. I'm not saying it's like monumental like repercussions to anything in his legacy, but I think it just has to hurt a little. I know I said last week that basically this season really isn't going to tarnish LeBron's legacy or anything like that. It's a stat padding year. It's a year to break some like of the long-standing scoring records and stuff like that. But then the Spurs caught up and the Lakers are on the outside looking in to the play-in. Like,
not right now. They're hanging on right now.
I mean, they're right there.
Yeah.
But there's a world where in this era, we're in this thing that was kind of created to like kind of give like a fringe team that could make a little noise, like a chance to save their season. The Lakers and LeBron James don't even fall into that. And I get LeBron's like missed about 15, 20-ish games this season, but the Lakers have just not been in a great position all year long. We've seen LeBron with bad teams in the past. He's been able to elevate them. I mean, those 2019 Lakers, they were like the first seed in the West until LeBron got hurt that first time, and then they plummeted. So it's not like LeBron can't drag, and especially in this Western Conference, like it's not as good as it used to be, but we'll get to that later. I think this, you have to kind of ding him a little bit for this. Like, and if he's so great, if people are putting him on the second all NBA team, why is this team in the 11th seed? I don't get it. So I don't know. That's just how I see it though.
Oh, before I get into my take, I just got to throw this out there. He should be on the first all NBA team.
That's
a discussion.
What?
Okay. No. Well, I'm going to dive into this just a little bit, but the news that came out that's saying not Giannis. Jokic and Embiid can both be considered forwards on the All-NBA ballot is absolutely bullshit. They have played a total of 0 minutes, both of them at the forward position. I'm sorry, because Giannis has a chance to not make an All-NBA first team just because, you could very easily give it to Joel Embiid for that first center. Jokic might make the second. Absolutely ridiculous. You can't go and change the rules. So LeBron should definitely be all NBA.
Yeah, but there's kind of like a catch with that. It's like, well, if you vote him for like a forward and like say Joel Embiid gets voted as a forward, none of his center votes count. So it's in a way it's like you're splitting the vote, from my understanding. I think the NBA should adopt this just with the way where sometimes you'll have teams playing 3 to 4 guards in a rotation, as I've seen the Bulls do a few times this year. Just have 2 front court, 2 back court slots, and a flex where it can be either a point guard, small forward, shooting guard, power forward, or center. Anybody.
If they want to do that, if they want to do that moving forward, that's fine. But they're changing the rules mid-season because their golden boy Jokic wouldn't be all NBA first team. That's the problem I have. They're changing it mid-season. If you want to change that moving forward, we did that with the All-Star votes. We did that front court, back court. That's fine. But you're changing it mid-season just because your boy Jokic isn't going to make first team.
Well, your boy LeBron should not be making first or second team.
Who has been the best small forward in the NBA this season?
Well, the best putting up points has been LeBron. I'm not going to deny that.
Who has been the best small forward in the NBA this year?
Okay. So you'd look back at like say like
There's one I would argue. There's one that you could argue.
Jason Tatum.
No, I'd say Kevin Durant. But Kevin Durant hasn't played.
Kevin Durant's the best player in the NBA.
Yeah, Kevin. No, he's up there.
He's the best player in the NBA.
Giannis is, but
he's better than Giannis.
Regardless, the best small forward that's played the amount of games that you need to in order to qualify for these things is LeBron James.
He barely qualifies though.
Yeah, KD's played less than him.
But I don't understand how he makes the All NBA in a forward spot ahead of guys like. Well, Tatum has been projected to be the first team.
Tatum, I think will be second.
The way he played down the stretch, I think he'll be second too. But the way he's played down the stretch, he has argument for first team. But like, why is someone like DeMar DeRozan below LeBron James? What has LeBron James done for his team this year beyond scoring? That's better than anything DeRozan's done this year. DeRozan's kept the Bulls in games.
When it comes,
DeRozan's won games at the final second. What has LeBron done?
When it comes to all NBA team, it is an individual award. It is one player. One player. What has one player done? No small forward has been better in the NBA this season than LeBron James, and he should be
statistically
with a first team.
But
that's what we go off of in the NBA.
No, okay, yes, stats are important for this award, but then there'd be tons of players over the history of the NBA that'd be making all NBA teams that just did not deserve it. You'd also be kicking guys off all NBA teams like Steve Nash, maybe, or at least having them on lower teams. Draymond Green wouldn't be making all NBA teams in his prime.
I'm sorry.
It has to be for the player. It has to be a balance of stats and how the player has contributed.
I understand
to how their team season went.
I understand. And
that's why you see MVP candidates on the first team.
Since the All-Star break, the Lakers don't win unless LeBron wins 50. Valuable. Moving on. We have to move on. I still get caught up into it. So absolutely not. If they miss the playoffs, this does not hurt LeBron. And I'll never understand why LeBron, it seems like it's the only player in all of sports where if he has a bad game in the middle of January, we talk about, oh, this is why he can't be the GOAT. We judge every individual, I won't even say game, every quarter LeBron James plays, it's judged at such a high level. He is picked apart and prodded. And there's a lot of guys out there in the media, Skip Bayless, number one, the leader of that anti-fan group. Literally, LeBron will have the other night he scored 39 points and they lost. He had a good game. They lost. And the first headline we see is he scored 4 points in the fourth quarter. That's great. That's great. But he scored 35 leading up to that, was the leading scorer of the entire game. His team has not basically won post All-Star break if he hasn't scored 50 points. We need to stop picking apart every little thing. Look, they very well might miss the play-in game. That is a real, very real possibility. But LeBron's legacy is cemented, and that cement is dry. Man, he can add on another section if he wants to moving forward, but what he's done is not going to go away just because he missed the playoffs. Jordan missed the playoff twice in both his years in the Wizards. Kareem missed it twice. D-Wade missed it twice. Shaq missed it twice. Kobe missed it 4 times. It's really not that huge of a deal in the grand scheme of things, But for LeBron, we try to make it huge. We try to make it, well, if he's the GOAT, he would never. Okay, calm down. All those players miss the playoffs. It happens sometimes. What we'll remember looking back on this season is 30 points, 52% shooting, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, year 19. That's all we'll remember. We're not going to remember, heck, even if they make the play-in and they're knocked out win the first game, which is a very real possibility as well, barring the health of these guys, we're not going to remember that. We're going to remember the Suns came back and dominated in the playoffs, so it wouldn't have mattered because they're going to go on and win a championship and maybe more. So it does not mean a lot in the grand scheme of things. But, hey, LeBron and AD, they're coming back Friday. They're going to try to save this season. They're both going to come back Friday. I'm calling it. They're going to try to save this season. So
Davis is confirmed.
Well, Davis is confirmed. I think LeBron, he'll probably try to push to play it as well. But we'll see. I do not have high hopes in the slightest. But they're going to come back and they're going to give it one last go. So just try to save it at the buzzer. But no, I don't think this hurts LeBron's legacy or anything moving forward if they miss the playoffs. But moving on to our next subject here that you kind of hinted at in your first little take there. Both of us kind of grew up in the same era of the NBA, and growing up, things have now changed to where we're at now, and I want to put that on record for at least me moving forward. The growing up, the Western Conference narrative to me is that it was always the tougher conference to win in. And you can just ask pretty much any LeBron haters, they'll try to discredit his 8 straight finals appearances because they say, oh, you were in the East, do that in the West. So the East was always perceived as, top heavy. It was whatever team LeBron was on. And in the West, it was a constant dogfight. And even though I think that's an oversimplified way of kind of looking at the past, for this conversation, I'll go on with that. I'll go on with that. I think the narrative is officially switched. They've literally switched positions in my mind. I currently think the Suns are the best team in the NBA. And frankly, I don't think it's close.
Oh,
I think the Suns are tremendous. And I think they're set up to be good for a long time. Post CP3, whenever he retires, whenever he walks out the door, I think they're still set up. They're young. They know what it takes to shout out to James Jones, general manager down there, who's putting together an amazing roster with a lot of team-friendly contracts too. They're not heavy loaded as far as the contracts go.
Maybe James Jones was the real lead GM during.
Hey,
I mean, he was on a lot of LeBron James teams. Maybe it's James Jones behind the scene the entire time. It wasn't LeBron.
He's done a fantastic job. I will say that. But in the East right now, who's coming out of it? Is it Miami? Is it Philly? Is it Boston? Is it Milwaukee? Like, it could be any of those teams. Does Chicago all of a sudden heat up and go on a run? Like, does Brooklyn do it? I don't think Brooklyn does it. But, we don't know what's going to happen in the East. And right now, the Eastern Conference playoffs, I am so much looking forward to. It is going to be must-watch television because every matchup is going to be absolutely insane. And I can't wait. I cannot wait for Eastern Conference.
It's going to be like March Madness, but better. Because pro players, and we get to watch at least 4 games, which every series is going to go to probably at least 5 or 6.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be insane. It's going to be insane. So I just think the narratives have completely switched from one conference to the next. They've just flip-flopped.
Yep. I won't completely agree on the flip-flop because I think at the end of the day, still the Western Conference is solid. It's just not as strong top to bottom as it used to be, but there's still a lot of really good teams. It's like the scales are almost balanced, although you have the Suns that are way up here compared to everybody else in the East.
Oh, yeah.
And the West. Whereas the East, 1 through 10, is super solid, super strong. And then you got 5 or 6 pretty decent teams that in a current Phoenix Sun here, you could almost argue okay, who's going to come out of the West? Because the way the Warriors are looking right now and the Grizzlies, because they're unproven, and the Jazz, and even the Mavericks, because why are they doing so well? You don't really know.
3 seed Mavericks now, man.
You don't really know who's going to come out of that conference either. Suns aside, if the Suns didn't exist for whatever reason. So I do think the East is finally, for the first time since Michael Jordan was on a court, is the better conference. But it's not like the West has completely switched to what the East was for our entire lives, essentially. I can comprehend what NBA basketball is lives at least is what I should say.
Oh man, I'd push back on that, but
on what?
I don't think the East was possibly as weak as we like to say.
Oh, come on.
Everybody hypes up the Celtics. We want to talk about how great of a team that was, but then we discredit it when it comes to them only making it to 1 finals and only winning those 1 finals. You want to talk about the actual teams that they had for a while in Indiana when Roy Hibbert still wasn't off his rocker, when he was still fantastic. Him and young Paul George were going at it, giving, even the Heatles everything that they can handle.
Yeah, well, those teams, I was going to bring that up.
In the early 2000s, Detroit too.
Well, the early 2000s Pacers, they had a small little run, and then the Malice at the Palace, Ron Artest eventually left, and Reggie Miller retired. That fell apart. You had the Bulls with a miniature little run, 2 or 3 years. The only franchises that for large chunks of the last 20 years were consistent were those early Detroit Pistons teams in the 2000s. They were good for a stretch. The Boston Celtics teams that basically formed the Miami Heat, they were good for a stretch and kept up with the Heat until almost the very end.
Yeah.
And then basically any team that LeBron James was on. And it's these. Those were really the only 3 and I'm counting LeBron as a franchise just to make it simple.
Just put that little caveat in there. I guess.
Just to make it simple. Those are really the only 3 consistently good franchises, because the Bulls had a little run, but I'm not going to count them. I'm not going to count both iterations of the Indiana Pacers in the early to mid 2000s and the mid 2010s. And yeah, that's really it. I'm not even going to count the Toronto Raptors because they were like a good
Yeah, they
team,
had
but
some
they
good
weren't
teams
like
too, yeah.
they weren't dominant. They weren't making the
No,
finals. They
no.
weren't unseeing LeBron, and
Well,
then they just happened to win the one
there's
conference
a
or the 1 year
reason
he was out of
why.
the conference.
Yeah, there's a reason why they weren't making the finals though.
Yeah,
There's a reason they couldn't get
because
past LeBron.
the man formerly known as LeBronto.
Okay.
I mean,
He does.
the Raptors have given him the
Yeah.
business since he's
Yeah,
moved
you're
west. He finally beat them for the first time in like the last
That's
7
all right.
games against him. But
That's all right. And you mentioned there too about Dallas. I just want to give a little approval there. How about Luka for MVP? But I'm just going to move on from that. Just saying, look at the numbers. He's been fantastic. So
he's up there.
Yeah, exactly. So at this point in the season, and as we now start to really get into playoffs, something that kind of came to my mind after just watching some games, looking at some box scores over the last few weeks is anyone really scared of the Warriors at this point, Jared? Like, are you at the point where you're out on the Warriors, or do you still think that they're a threat over there in the Western Conference?
I mean, they're going to be a threat through the first 2 rounds to any team that goes against them because a lot of the players on that team have experience. Steve Kerr has extensive experience as both a player and a coach, as we all know. They have a lot of young, unproven guys, some wild cards. Some of their rotations don't have a lot of size or defense. James Wiseman not coming back for the rest of the season is going to hurt. Even though it'd be kind of hard to slot him in at this point in the season. Like, all right, hey, we know you haven't played all year, but here come the playoffs. Let's go. Get ready.
Lock down the paint. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think size is still important, especially in the earlier rounds, especially against a team like whoever's going to try to go through the West is going to go against Phoenix. And DeAndre Ayton is a man that can stay on the floor and he moves well. He's versatile. So any team that's going against the Suns, they're going to be forced to play big. Because the Suns just have bigs. They have JaVale McGee, Bismack Biyombo. Like they have big guys. They're going to use them and they're going to use them to their advantage.
Not even that. Right now, first round matchup, they'd be facing Jokic.
Yeah.
First round right now. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
So for the Warriors, as long as Steph is and somehow Clay comes back to like pre-injury Clay.
Well.
Yeah, he's been playing better. He's just getting it, and I expect him to be even better next season. But Draymond just has to clean up some of his late game mistakes he's been making recently. Clay has to find some consistency, and Steph just has to play out of his mind. And the role players surrounding them just kind of have to basically just bolster them. They're gonna have to figure out who's going to be their guy that's essentially taking the PJ Tucker role of like I'm 6'4" and have no business guarding DeAndre Ayton, but here I am because my team traded away our center, like in the case of the Rockets. So the Warriors will be scary, but I don't think they're a true title contender.
Yeah, this season, man, it's been an absolute roller coaster for the Warriors. And in the beginning, I went way back to our predictions. I did not peg them nearly for the top of the West, let alone the number 1 seed, which they held down. They held off the Suns for a little bit there, way back in the beginning of the season. And I was just thinking about things and looking for kind of a comparison. I'm sorry to have to do this to you, but they remind me so much of the Bulls in the East. And I have a few points that for that reason.
I'm not insulted.
They came out so hot. They came out on fire. They made people believers. They really held off on holding on to that 1 seed. The Bulls did it for a lot longer than the Warriors. Obviously, the Bulls didn't have to hold off the Suns, but Curry and DeRozan both breaking different records. You have Curry, obviously the all-time three-point shooting. DeRozan is breaking Wilt Chamberlain records out here for his efficiency and his shooting. Their top defenders got hurt. Draymond Green getting hurt. Obviously, Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball getting hurt on the Bulls side. The defense, in turn, really struggled as far as team defense, losing those key guys. They've had a lot of bright spots out of some of their younger players. Talk about Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga over there for the Warriors. And obviously, you move over to the Bulls, talk a lot about Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, guys like that who have kind of had this opportunity to play and get some good minutes. You've seen a lot of bright spots about them. I mean, they can ball, especially Jordan Poole. What did he drop? 38 points, I think it was last night or something like that. They still lost, but just ball it out. I think at the end, though, they're both not really scaring anybody in the playoffs this year. And it's weird because it's how far we've come. I think both these teams, especially the Warriors, have really earned their spot in the standings where they're at, and they're just a little bit too streaky to be considered a real threat for me in the playoffs. And I just think that comparison to the Bulls kind of just puts it in perspective for me where, the Bulls, we talk a lot about it. And, yes, they've had some very key injuries that's really hurt them on the defensive end.
Too many key injuries.
Yeah. Yeah. You could tell us all about that. But I think the Warriors are in a similar situation. Obviously, at the very top of their games, I think they have the better overall player, like top player, if Steph Curry's playing at the top of his game. But DeMar DeRozan has, you can argue, been a top 5 player, at least top 10, top 7, if not top 5 player in the NBA this year.
He's so top, fantastic. He should probably be on the All NBA ahead of somebody. But
yeah, second. Yeah, he'll be up there. But
he'll be on the second team.
Yes,
LeBron will be on the third if he's like
who will be on the third? You said?
Oh, you heard who I said?
No, I actually did. I didn't catch
LeBron.
It. Oh, LeBron on the third team. Okay, come on now. Anyways. No, I'm not scared about the Warriors, especially at this point where we're having the season. We're still waiting for Steph Curry to get back. Draymond Green looks like he's playing with a lot of rust. The best player on their team over the last few weeks has been Jordan Poole, and I just don't think he has that experience to show up in the playoffs and really just kind of compete. I mean, right now, see, they're sitting in the 4 seed. Yeah, like I said, they'd be taking on Jokic and the Nuggets. I don't know. Right now, I think momentum-wise, I'd be picking the Nuggets in that series if everything stands the way that it is. So I don't consider them a threat as the way that they sit right now. But, oh, man, that's in the Western Conference. There was a big game last night in the Eastern Conference that I know I was really excited to see. So that was the Heat versus the Celtics in Boston. Obviously, my favorite team against people would say my least favorite team because I have been against the Boston Celtics since we've originally started this podcast. But I'm just curious from your perspective, Jarrett, just from going back, looking at it, what does this game tell you about 2 of the East top teams? If it didn't tell you anything, was this just a regular season game?
Down this stretch of the season, just how close the standings are in the East, it was a very important game, especially for Miami, who is starting to let the pack over the last couple of weeks catch back up to them after they had somewhat of a healthy lead over the rest of the East. But they really need this game. And I think this game says a lot about the team. And it also kind of says like, hey, this is business as usual in Miami. Last week's dust up between Coach Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler. It's not going to affect us. We're ready. We're locked in and we're going to keep going. What this is for the Celtics is that it's going to be tough, especially without Robert Williams, who tore his MCL, who is supposedly going to be out at least 4 to 6 weeks, which God help them holding out for that long till he returns because they're going to need his thighs, because especially his defense, because he does wonders for them.
His rim protection, really, yeah.
It's critical. But I mean, it's good news for a lot of other teams in the East. That sounds weird saying, because you never want a player to be injured in any circumstance unless it's Grayson Allen or Matthew Dellavedova. I didn't like him either.
Why Delly?
Because he hurt Taj Gibson one year.
Oh, come on.
And Kyle Korver. How do you can't hurt Kyle Korver? That's like hurting Alex Caruso. There's just some players that are off limits. If anyone says they hate Kyle Korver,
yeah.
Well, why? Please tell me why. What's wrong with you as a person?
I hated those Hawks teams.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine hating the Atlanta Hawks, like having a reason? Like,
oh my god,
I don't think there's ever been a reason. Okay, Trae Young. Okay, until Trae Young, I don't think there's ever been a reason to hate the Atlanta Hawks. Anyway, yeah, it's going to be a tough road for the Celtics, especially because they're going to have to kind of change the way they play. Especially just how they've gotten so used to how they've been playing of late and kind of buying into Ime Udoka's system and everything like that. Jason Tatum has to have better games than that. I mean, 23 isn't going to be enough. Jaylen Brown had a good game to kind of help keep it close, but we're going to need to see the best of Jason Tatum going forward. But it's told me that I don't really have to worry about the Heat for the Heat's sake. And then just the Celtics have some questions to answer because they're in like a 2-game skid right now.
Yeah.
So
I agree, man. This was a big game for Miami just because of the way that they've been struggling as of late. a few weeks ago, it looks like they basically had first place locked up in the East. It looked like they were just going to kind of hold off, have a 2 to 3 game lead and close it out. But now it's going to be a fight till the end. They're one game up as of right now. So only a few more games to go. Right now, you don't know who's going to be that 8 seed. So it's going to be interesting moving forward. But it was important for me for the Heat, to get it was a nice road win, against a team that has really been the talk of the league and really kind of gained some respect, not necessarily among me, because I still have yet to really give them their props, and I'm still holding on. I don't think they're going very far, but they scored 106 points on supposedly the league's top defense, and hopefully that whole Butler bench skirmish situation, it's officially a thing of the past. We haven't heard anything about it. I don't think anybody's holding any hard feelings. That's Jimmy Butler. That's Miami. That's Spo. That's in the past, and they're starting to turn things back in the right direction. So I like to see. As for Boston, if they're smart, this game should be a little humbling for them, just a little bit. They have been riding high. They have been getting a lot of national attention. They have been fantastic, especially everybody's talking about that defense. They've been absolutely rolling. Like I said before, like we both said before, the East is going to be crazy this year. It's going to be absolutely insane. Celtics, to me, complaining about the calls, which I thought it was well officiated down the stretch, and it was really nice. I might be a little biased in this take, but it was nice for me. It was nice to see another great defense flex their defensive muscles on the Celtics, because the Celtics are like, that wasn't a charge. That was not a legal block. It was like Miami buckled down those last 5 minutes defensively and shut down Boston, which is what Boston's been doing to the entire league. And I think if they're smart about it, they'll look at it and be like, listen, we had a great turnaround this season, but we're not a perfect team. We got some things that we need to work on, just like every other team. And I think Miami buckling down on them defensively, shutting them down at the end of the game, should be a little humbling, and they should go back to the drawing board. And like you said, Williams being out is going to be a huge factor, because what he provided to them for them was that rim protection. I think he's leading the league in blocks. He was like at 2.3 blocks a game or something.
Surprise me.
He was up there.
That's the league high this year.
It might have been.
I think
I don't know the exact number, but I know he was
go
up
to Basketball Reference.
Go for it. But I know he was up there. But for me, this was such a fun game to watch. Tatum's been an absolute beast, but I still don't see them going deep in the playoffs. And it's just going to be so tough at how these Eastern Conference playoffs shakes out. Like, just sitting where we're at right now. And I don't think it's going to hold as we move forward, but right now you would get your Celtics and your Bulls matchup in round one. So we'll see. We have your quote ready to go, that we'll see you in the playoffs. We're ready. That's what we want. I'm not scared. So I am ready with the TikToks in case they sweep you guys round one. I am ready for it.
Despite my dismay towards the Bulls play the past couple weeks, I have so much irrational confidence in the series against the Celtics. I'm like Pat Beverly as a Bulls fan. Okay, maybe not to like that level, but like I have Pat Beverly irrational confidence when it comes to a series against the Celtics. Like, please bring them up.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right, because I don't see them going far. I really don't.
And Robert Williams, so he probably did have 2.3 blocks per game. He's at 2.2, technically 2.2. Sitting third to Jaren Jackson Jr. and Rudy Gobert. Jaren Jackson Jr. has 2.3.
Sneaky defensive player of the year candidate, Jaren Jackson Jr. too. He might come in and steal that from.
Still annoys the hell out of me that he averages like under 6 boards a game. Like, how are you that tall and like can't grab a ball? Like, it's Steven Adams said it. It's not a science. It just grabs the ball.
You go up and you just grab.
I
was thinking of.
You don't gotta be Dennis Rodman.
You're thinking of
Taurean
Prince.
Taurean Prince
from
after Baylor lost.
How did they have more rebounds? Well, they go up and they grab the ball and they come down with it, and then that's called a rebound. So,
sometimes fellow journalists just ask the worst questions, really do, and then like to have some hindsight, you're gonna end up like you're never gonna live that down.
It's perfect lead in here to our last segment too, because speaking of dumb questions by media, Kyrie was asked about his possibility of, maybe leaving Brooklyn in the future, what he looks like moving forward. And he said, and I quote, "I can't leave my man number 7," talking obviously about Kevin Durant, how he doesn't want to leave his side. So Jared, are you putting anything in Kyrie's comments, or is this Kyrie being Kyrie? What do you think about this?
I buy stock in some of what he's saying. In the past, we've seen Kyrie in unattainable situations. Now there was a time where he was saying like, I want my number in the rafters with the Boston Celtics, and now I believe Peyton Pritchard's wearing number 11 on that team. So
He is too. I think
there is that, but that was a few years out before that situation melted down. Whereas his impending free agency is coming up really quick, and he's really good friends with Kevin Durant. I mean, that's why Kevin Durant has stuck through him with all his quarantine stuff. When James Harden was like, "I'm going to give him the damn shot myself," and then flew the coop. I believe that Kyrie really wants to stay. I believe he wants to play with Kevin Durant, not so much stay for Brooklyn, but stay to play with his friend. And because we've seen when he was with Cleveland, like we see like the uneasiness between him and LeBron, and like LeBron kind of wanted to be his like mentor, and Kyrie being like, nah, no. So we've seen situations where like you could tell what Kyrie's thinking when he wants out, and in this situation, I'm not seeing that from what's in the media, from his quotes. So I'm willing to bet that yes, Kyrie Irving will remain in Brooklyn net.
Is it that time of year again? Is it? Well, you know, Kyrie, he's a very trustworthy person. You know, if he says he's staying, then I guess wait a minute. It's exactly what he said in Boston a few years ago. Do we remember? I plan on re-signing here if y'all have me. I plan on re-signing here if y'all have me. Is that just forgotten? Do we just forget about that? Look, Kyrie's fluky. He's different. He's a little strange. And I'm not faulting him for being what he is at all. I think you have to be true to who you are. And
he's true to who he is.
I am not in any way hating on Kyrie, the person. But when it comes to being a professional, playing on professional teams with fans, players, and all these other people making commitments to Kyrie with expectations that he'll hold up his end of the bargain, I'm done with that. I'm done believing what he says. And I'm never going to fault him for what he is personally. It's who he is as a person. But there's a difference. When you're a professional, you have to be held to the professional standard. You have to hold up your ends of the bargain. You have to make these commitments. And that's basically all they ask from you as a professional ball player to make millions and millions of dollars. Look, Kyrie's going to play wherever he wants to. He's going to do what he wants with no regard for the rest of his team or his teammates until he burns enough bridges that his talent just can't carry him to the ideal locations that he wants to play, regardless of wherever that becomes in the future. I'm just so sick of Kyrie. I don't know. You can probably tell, man. I'm sick of the Kyrie. I'm sick of his explanation for things. I'm sick of these promises because when I saw that quote, it literally like was a voice track in the back of my head. I plan on resigning here if y'all have me. No one forcing you to make these commitments, bro. No one's forcing you to put this out there. Like the professional response is, I don't know. We're going to have contract discussions. I'd love, if the opportunity presents itself to stay here, it's definitely an option that I would consider, things like that, be professional, but this is Kyrie. This is what I expect from him. And we'll see. We'll see if this is another empty promise. Who knows if they get bounced, and they could get bounced in the play-in tournament. And all of a sudden Kyrie is like, no, I'm out of here. We can't win with this. It wouldn't surprise me. It would not shock me. So I don't know.
Where would he go?
That's what I'm saying. He's going to, at some point, if he keeps going down this road, he's not there yet. He could burn enough bridges that his talent is not going to carry him to whatever location he wants to play.
You know what's funny? There are 3 players. There's like a Mount Rushmore, and they haven't built the Teddy Roosevelt part of the mountain yet.
Yeah.
There are 3 players on the list where like I don't see how they have a next team if this situation doesn't work out. One of them's already screwed because they're not going to be in their current situation possibly next year, even if they can't move him. Number 1 out of that list is Russell Westbrook. What team takes that man?
Yep.
Number 2, obviously Kyrie, because I think a team is more willing to take a risk on him than the other 2 guys on my list.
Yeah.
Just because it's like his age, and for whatever reason, he's happy for like a season and a half.
Yeah, incredibly talented too. Amazing.
So you try to have your team set up to like, yeah, we only need Kyrie for a season and a half, and then we whatever happens, I guess that happens. And then the third guy is James Harden. Like, what's Harden gonna do if the Sixers thing doesn't work out? Because that looks really bad. So I just had to throw that in there real quick. No,
I agree with you 100%, man. 100%. But got to move on here to our last segment on the TML podcast cast. And as always, Let's tee them up. So who gets your technical foul this week, my man?
All right. So the people that get the technical foul are Nike, the Washington Wizards. Nah, I got enough. I got enough hate on that for
Yeah,
TikTok, so
you
I'll
got
leave that.
roasted. You got
Plus,
roasted.
the Bulls kicked the Wizards' ass on their Jersey day anyway, so I'm chill about it. Who I'm teeing up, and it's probably no surprise. I got to tee up the officiating crew last night for the Indiana Pacers Denver Nuggets game.
Oh,
We,
yeah,
we
I know where you're going. Go ahead.
we know the refs. The ref is so bad to where I've seen lots of comments on Twitter and it makes sense. Start finding refs for some of this shit. I swear to God, it's getting bad. Like Austin Rivers is at the top of the key, and of all players who it has to be, it's just the icing on the cake that it's Lance Stevenson, the man that can't seem to stay away from the Indiana Pacers, and the Pacers vice versa. It's like a toxic couple that gets back together over and over and over again. Anyway, Rivers is like looking to make a pass. He's kind of doing like your little pump fake with the passes. Like you can do that move in 2K. You hit the X in the circle and it does it for you. And he kind of like almost like fakes an elbow at Lance, and then Lance kind of reacts and starts making his classic like weird ass Lance face, looking at the ref. And they tee up and eject Austin Rivers from the game. The ref that made the call goes to review it to see if the technical stands, and then upheld the technical himself. So it's like there's no checks and balances in that process whatsoever. Which is ridiculous because if you look back at it, it's like it's a basketball move. It's a basketball move. It's a fake pass. He's
Ref
not
didn't
like,
want to admit he was wrong. He didn't want to admit
and it's not like Rivers' arm was that close to his face either. Like
he missed his beard.
Like,
he didn't even touch the beard.
Yeah, it's not like it's like yeah, I'm holding my hands up to the camera. Sorry for people on the audio. It wasn't even that close. Like, so what's the issue here? There's been players that have done much worse and no consequences. So I'm just teeing up the whole officiating crew. I'm teeing up the NBA Refs Association. You got to stop protecting these guys. NBA fine them, take away games, say, okay, you're banned from the playoffs this year. Do whatever you got to do. I'm tired of this. Done.
Man, what we might need to do, we might need to go back at all of our TM ups and form like a leaderboard, because I guarantee referees are at the top of our technical foul leaderboards. They are way up there at the top. So, but I'm going a little bit different, and I might get some hate for this one. It might from you. I don't know how you
don't have a controversial jersey opinion.
No, it's not about jersey. Not about jersey. I am teeing up Jose Alvarado of the Pelicans.
Come on.
I knew you were going to think this way. I knew you were going to think this way.
Even though he pissed me off
last night, once again, he pulled the whole let's hide in the corner, sneak up after the inbounds play and get a steal. Listen, I'm not the old school type of, that's not how it's done.
I don't know.
Integrity of the game guy. But this is a little bit different. This seems amateur to me. This seems rec league to me. I'm in no way being like, there's no room for that in the NBA. No, it just seems amateur. Like that's the way it comes across to me. It's trickery. Huge credit to Jose. He's played his way into a solid NBA contract. He's really earned his spot in the league. Going from the whole, can this guy shoot? Yeah, I can shoot. Like I like Jose Alvarado, but it seems like he's doing this more and more. Obviously, there's the opposing teams are going to start to catch on, and they're going to really pay attention to it. I'm just not a fan of this move, man. It just seems a little juvenile to me, a little rec league, a little just amateur. I'm not a fan of it. And I know I knew you were either going to be completely on one side or the other. I thought you might disagree with me, and I know I might get some hate as well, but I'm not a fan of this move. I'm not a fan of this move at all.
See, I completely disagree. Now, if it's happening against my team, I'm going to
Which he did. Caruso, he did it to Caruso, forced the travel on Caruso. So
yeah, but I'm more pissed at my team because let him know that, hey, Wolf. I mean, I was shouting at the TV. Don't get me wrong. I always do that. Like you can't be mad at Jose Alvarado. What's his name again? Alvarado. Yeah. You can't be mad at Alvarado for just taking what the game's giving him. This is a guy that's come out of nowhere in the NBA.
Yeah.
Secured a 2 to 3 year contract just based off his play.
He's done great.
This is how this guy's made his money, by doing stuff like that. You know what? I'm all for it. It keeps the teams honest. It makes your players aware. And it's like, all right, well, you guys are just making rookie mistakes and he's exposing your awareness. So, good on him. Good for Jose Alvarado. Keep doing your thing, man. It's fun to watch. Just don't do it against the Bulls unless you want to join us.
Yeah, it was a 4-year contract he signed, which credit to him, dude. He absolutely deserves it. He's done everything the Pelicans have asked from him. He's done it at a high level. So I give him credit for that. I'm just not a fan of his move. He needs to take it out of his repertoire. So that's all we have for this week on the TMO podcast. I want to thank you guys all for joining us. Sure to follow along on all the social media platforms throughout the week for some fun NBA content that we always throw out there. So thank you guys all for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Make sure to share us with your family and friends.